First step in making a charcoal burner is acquire an old gas cylinder and remove the valve. With the valve out, you can flush the cylinder with water. Now, whilst mine was flushing, I set about making the hinges for the lids and just left the hose running. You can just weld on a hinge from stock, but I didn't have one handy, so I thought I'd make one this time. It's quite simple to do with a length of stock bar. The next step is to cut the top out of your old gas cylinder. I just cut around the handle guard at the top with an angle grinder. First of all, cut through the area where the hinge and the catch are going to go, and then fit your hinge and catch before actually cutting the rest of the gas cylinder. Right, here we are marking it up. Just mark where the hinge goes. Just 4 bits of steel held together with a bolt. It's quite simple. Clean the paint off. That's important, otherwise welding doesn't really work very well trying to do it through the paint. It's usually possible just to hold the hinge in position with the earth clamp while you get that first tack on. Being a funny shape, it's hard to fix it in any way onto the cylinder prior to welding. Welding, I use a MIG welder, but a MIG or a stick, I suppose, could do it just as well. This is me just trying to show a bit of MIG welding with a welding screen put in front of the camera. The camera I use for this, by the way, is just an iPhone 6. Everything is filmed and edited on the iPhone. That's the hinge welded on. Next you need to provide the catch to the opposite side. Again, just a bit of plate steel welded on. Finally finished cutting around, check for little bits still hanging on. A well-worn angle grinder disc is quite good for this stage, and then you see it just opens up on the hinge. As you can see, I've left it full of water throughout this process for safety. We then need to add a catch to hold it closed, so I simply drill through a thickening plate, tap, and then thread in a toggle style catch on there. That just holds it closed and keeps the thing secure when you're filling it. And finally, for the burning, just as well to take off the burrs. You don't want a nasty cut on your wrist when you're loading wood into this thing. So a quick whiz round with the power file, and the whole thing is deburred. I then like to just burr the end over on the bolt that holds the hinge. It just stops it coming undone. So we then start to make our charcoal. Ideally quite small pieces. This is some pine branches off a pine tree that died in our garden. Don't put in too big a bits. Next thing we need is a 45-gallon drum. Well, I already have this one that I use as an incinerator. As you can see, I've cut the lid off and just burred it over with about 1 inch left all the way around, so that it then sits on the top nicely. You then stand the gas cylinder inside upside down. That's it. Put in some paper, put in the load of small branches, twigs, everything. Cram it all in as hard as you can. Get the fire going and add a few logs. You don't need too many. You need this to burn for about 4 hours to create charcoal. Loosely fit the lid until it gets going. Then when it does get going nicely and has been burning for an hour or so, just drop the lid on completely with the plug out and let it burn like that. Just leave it, walk away, leave it. I then left it overnight to cool down, and this is what I pulled out. The old yellow cylinder has turned white. Open it up, let's see what we've got inside. Oh yes, nice charcoal, ready to go on the barbecue. There it is, your very own homemade charcoal at very little cost.